I never thought my mother's funeral would be the day that changed everything. For 5 years, I'd been a ghost to my family, a necessary disappearing act after my sister Bethany destroyed my wedding dress the night before I was supposed to marry the love of my life. I stood in the back of the chapel, hidden behind oversized sunglasses, watching my estranged family mourn. No one recognized me with my dyed hair and the weight I'd lost. I wouldn't have come at all if not for the cryptic email from Mom's lawyer, insisting my presence was crucial for the execution of Margaret Wilson's final wishes. I had no idea that in 30 minutes, Mom's executor would reveal a secret that would make everyone in that room turn to look at me, the daughter who vanished without a trace, and finally understand why I had to leave. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Dad was a successful investment banker who died when I was 12, leaving Mom to raise 3 daughters on her own. Mom never remarried, pouring everything into maintaining our status in the community and ensuring we had the right opportunities. My oldest sister, Caroline, was Mom's pride, valedictorian, Yale graduate, now a successful corporate attorney. Bethany, the middle child, was always Mom's favorite, despite her struggles. She had this magnetic charm that got her out of every mess she created. And then there was me, Eliza, the youngest, the quiet one, the family afterthought. Eliza's just finding her way, Mom would tell her friends at the country club when they asked about my modest career as a librarian. What she never mentioned was my passion for rare book restoration, a skill I'd developed through years of apprenticeship that Mom dismissed as an expensive hobby. The pattern of humiliation started early. When I was 9, I'd saved my allowance for months to buy Mom a vintage brooch for Mother's Day. During our family celebration at the Maple Tree Inn, Mom opened my gift, smiled tightly, and said, "How thoughtful, Eliza," before setting it aside. Later that evening, I overheard her tell Bethany, "It's costume jewelry. We'll have to teach your sister about quality someday." In high school, things got worse. My junior prom should have been magical. I'd been asked by Noah, a quiet, kind boy from my AP literature class. Mom insisted on hosting the pre-prom gathering at our house for the right exposure. While taking photos in our garden, Bethany, home from college, casually mentioned how Noah had originally asked her out when visiting the weekend before. "I told him my little sister would be a good consolation prize," she announced to everyone. The laughter still echoes in my mind. Despite it all, I made my own way. I put myself through college, moved to Boston, and built a reputation as one of the most skilled book conservators in New England. Then I met James at a museum fundraiser. He was a history professor who valued my work, my mind, my heart. When we decided to marry after 2 years together, I made a grand gesture. I reached out to my family, trying to bridge the gap that had grown between us. "Let's start fresh," I told Mom over lunch at her country club. "I want you all at my wedding." What I didn't know then was that Mom had been keeping a secret from all of us, one that would eventually explain her coldness toward me, her favoritism of Bethany, and why my wedding would become the breaking point for everything I thought I knew about our family. My wedding was planned for a perfect June day at the Hawthorne Historical Society, where I'd restored their collection of first edition New England poetry. The ceremony would be intimate, just 60 guests in the garden, followed by dinner in the library among the books I'd given new life. Mom insisted on hosting the rehearsal dinner at the Westbrook Country Club, where she'd maintained her membership since Dad died. "People expect certain standards from the Wilson family," she reminded me. I agreed, hoping this final concession might ease the tension that had been building since James and I announced our engagement. I should have known better. The rehearsal dinner became a showcase of Caroline's legal achievements and Bethany's recent engagement to a surgeon from a very well-connected family, as Mom repeatedly mentioned. My upcoming marriage to a professor was treated as an afterthought. At least the venue will be lovely, Mom said when someone asked about our wedding plans, though I did suggest the club instead, so much more appropriate. James squeezed my hand under the table, his quiet support keeping me grounded. After dinner, he whispered, "One more day, then it's just us." I nodded, counting the hours. Back at Mom's house, where I was staying the night before the wedding, Caroline pulled me aside. "Mom's been acting strange about tomorrow. Is everything okay between you two?" "Same as always," I replied. "I'm never quite enough." Caroline hesitated. She was in Dad's study earlier, going through his old papers. When I asked what she was looking for, she practically slammed the drawer shut. I shrugged it off as pre-wedding nerves, but something about her words nagged at me. Later that night, I carefully hung my wedding dress in the guest room, a vintage 1950s gown I'd found and restored myself, with delicate lace overlay and tiny pearl buttons down the back. It represented everything I loved: history given new life, beauty preserved through care and attention. I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of glass breaking. Following the noise to the kitchen, I found Bethany, clearly drunk, attempting to clean up a shattered wine bottle. "Sorry," she slurred. "Pre-wedding celebration got a little out of hand." "It's fine," I said, helping her with the glass. "Just get some sleep. Book day tomorrow." She gripped my arm suddenly, her nails digging into my skin. "You know Mom never wanted you to get married first, right? She had plans for how things should go. Caroline, then me, then maybe you." "Bethany, you're drunk. Go to bed." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're so special with your fancy book job and your professor? Did you ever wonder why Mom treats you differently? There's a reason." I pulled away. "Whatever it is, we can talk about it tomorrow, after my wedding." Her laugh followed me down the hallway. "We'll see about that." The next morning, I discovered my wedding dress in ruins. Red wine splashed across the bodice, large scissors cuts through the skirt, and several pearl buttons ripped off and scattered across the floor. A note in Bethany's handwriting lay beside it. "Now maybe Mom will tell you the truth." When I confronted her, Bethany was already dressed for the wedding, feigning innocence, while Mom stood beside her. "I'm sure it was an accident," Mom said, not even looking at the destroyed dress. "It was Bethany," I said through tears. "She did this deliberately." Mom's face hardened. "You always need to blame someone else for your problems, don't you, Eliza? Just like your—" She stopped herself abruptly. "Like my what, Mom?" Something in her expression made everything click. The years of distance, the constant comparison, the secret conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Mom turned away. "We'll buy you a new dress. The club shop has lovely options. We can delay the ceremony by an hour." "This isn't about the dress anymore," I said quietly. "What were you going to say? Just like my what?" "Not today," Mom whispered. "Please, Eliza, not today." But I knew. In that moment, I finally knew what had been hidden from me my entire life. And I couldn't face a room full of people pretending everything was normal. I called James, explained through tears that I needed time. Then I packed a bag, emptied my savings account, and disappeared without a word to anyone else. 5 years passed without contact. I moved to Seattle, changed my last name to my grandmother's maiden name, and built a new life restoring rare books for the Pacific Northwest collection. James eventually found me. He'd never stopped looking, and we married quietly at the courthouse with 2 colleagues as witnesses. Then came the email from Edward Brennan, Mom's attorney. "Margaret Wilson has passed. The reading of the will requires your presence. Matters concerning your paternity will be addressed." There it was in black and white, confirmation of what I'd suspected that wedding day. At the funeral, I watched my family from the back row. Caroline looked older, more severe. Bethany clung to her surgeon husband, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Neither recognized me with my shorter, darker hair and West Coast clothes. After the service, Mr. Brennan gathered the immediate family in a private room at the funeral home. I slipped in last, sitting in a corner chair. Caroline was mid-sentence when she noticed me. "Excuse me, this is a private—" She stopped, recognition dawning. "Eliza?" The room fell silent. "What are you doing here?" Bethany hissed. "You abandoned us, disappeared without a word." Mr. Brennan cleared his throat. "I invited her. Mrs. Wilson's instructions were explicit." He placed a folder on the table and adjusted his glasses. "Before I read the will, Mrs. Wilson requested I shared this letter with all three of you together." He began reading. "My daughters, if you're hearing this, I've finally found the courage in death that I lacked in life. The truth is long overdue, especially to Eliza." My heart pounded as he continued. Robert Wilson was not Eliza's biological father. During a difficult period in our marriage, I had a brief relationship with Robert's brother, Thomas. When I discovered I was pregnant, Robert forgave my indiscretion on one condition. We would raise the child as his own, and no one, especially not the child, would ever know the truth. Gasps filled the room. Caroline covered her mouth. Bethany stared at me, her expression unreadable. I honored that promise until Robert's death. Afterward, guilt and shame colored my relationship with Eliza. She reminded me daily of my greatest mistake, not the affair, but allowing Robert's resentment to shape how we treated a blameless child. Mr. Brennan paused, glancing at me before continuing. "Thomas Wilson never knew he had a daughter. He died last year, leaving his collection of rare first editions to the Boston Literary Foundation. Eliza, your passion for book restoration wasn't coincidence. You inherited it from your biological father, who was a renowned collector." I stood, my voice finding strength I didn't know I had. "You let me believe I was simply less worthy of love, that I had done something wrong. You watched Bethany destroy my wedding dress, the most important day of my life, and you still said nothing." Bethany laughed nervously. "You can't possibly believe this. Mom was confused in her final days." "DNA doesn't lie," Mr. Brennan interjected, sliding a paper toward Bethany. "Your mother had testing done 6 months ago. The results are included with her letter." Caroline reached for my hand across the table. I pulled away. "I'm not here for reconciliation," I said. "I came to hear the truth, and now I have it." As I turned to leave, Mr. Brennan called after me. "There's more to the will, Eliza. Your mother left you Thomas's letters and photographs, and the house. She left you the family home." I paused at the doorway, looking back at their shocked faces. The house meant everything to her. "And to you," I said to Bethany, whose expression had transformed from smug disbelief to horror. "I wonder how that feels, to realize you've been competing your whole life with someone who never even knew they were in the race." I walked out, leaving them in the chaos of shattered family myths. The days following Mom's funeral unfolded in a blur of revelations. I checked into a hotel rather than staying at the house. My house now, according to the will. James flew in from Seattle to support me as I began sorting through decades of family secrets. Caroline was the first to reach out, asking to meet at a coffee shop downtown, away from the family drama. When I arrived, she looked smaller somehow, her corporate armor stripped away. "I didn't know," she said immediately. "I swear, Eliza, I had no idea." "But you suspected something," I countered. "There were moments over the years when you almost intervened." She nodded, staring into her untouched coffee. "I found letters once when I was in college. They were from Uncle Thomas to Mom, hidden in her dresser. I confronted her, and she said they were from before she met Dad. I believed her because it was easier than questioning everything." "Why did you call me that day?" I asked, "after I disappeared?" "Because despite everything, you're my sister. DNA doesn't change that." She reached across the table tentatively. "I should have protected you more." The next day, Mr. Brennan delivered a weathered leather box containing Uncle Thomas's, my father's, letters to Mom. They spanned decades, from passionate notes during their affair to more distant, polite correspondence after I was born. The final letter, dated just months before his death, contained a photograph of me at a book conservation conference where I'd presented. Someone had sent it to him. "I see myself in her passion for preservation," he'd written. "I've respected your wishes all these years, Margaret, but I wonder if it's time for truth, before it's too late." It was already too late for him, but not for me. I hired a professional to help clean out Mom's house, our house, preparing it for sale. In Dad's, Robert's, study, we found a hidden compartment in his desk containing a journal. His entries revealed a complex man who had struggled with raising his brother's child. The final entry, written days before his death, read, "I've failed as a father to Eliza. My resentment wasn't her burden to bear. Margaret promises she'll make it right, but I fear my brother's shadow will always stand between them." Mom never made it right. Instead, she doubled down on the distance, perhaps to protect herself from her own guilt. 3 weeks after the funeral, an unexpected visitor arrived at the house. Bethany stood on the porch, looking uncertain, an expression I'd rarely seen on her. "What do you want?" I asked, not inviting her in. "To return this," she said, holding out a small box. Inside was the vintage brooch I'd given Mom for Mother's Day all those years ago. She kept it in her jewelry box. It was the only piece she took with her to hospice. I accepted it silently. "I knew," Bethany admitted suddenly. "Not at first, but Mom told me the night before your wedding. She was drunk and upset that you were marrying James, who she thought was too much like Uncle Thomas. She said it was history repeating." "So you destroyed my dress?" "I wanted her to tell you the truth. I thought if I created a crisis, she'd be forced to explain everything." Bethany's eyes filled with tears. "It was wrong and cruel, and I've regretted it every day since. You could have found me afterward, told me yourself. Pride, shame, fear you'd never forgive me." She wiped her eyes. "Mom left me nothing, you know. The executor said my actions demonstrated a fundamental betrayal of family trust. Caroline got the money, you got the house and Thomas's collection. I got nothing, except the knowledge that I helped destroy our family." I felt no satisfaction in her pain, only a hollow recognition of wasted years. "What will you do with the house?" she asked. "Sell it. James and I are building a life in Seattle. I'm opening my own conservation studio." "And us? Your family?" I considered her question carefully. "I don't know yet. Trust doesn't return overnight." 2 months later, the house sold for more than expected. I used part of the proceeds to establish the Thomas Wilson Conservation Fellowship for promising bookbinders. The first recipient was a young woman from Connecticut with a passion for preserving literary history. James and I returned to Seattle, where I mailed Caroline and Bethany each a leather-bound first edition from Thomas's collection, books that matched their personalities and interests, with a simple note: "New beginnings require acknowledging the past. This is a start." The unexpected twist came 6 months later when I received a package containing a wedding dress, not my ruined one, but one remarkably similar, carefully preserved from the 1950s. The note read, "Found this while volunteering at a vintage clothing archive. Some things deserve restoration." Bethany. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was an acknowledgement. A small bridge across a chasm that once seemed impassable. 5 years after that funeral, I understand now that family isn't just blood or shared history. It's a choice we make every day. My mother's secret shaped my life in ways I never imagined, but it no longer defines me. The truth freed me to become who I was always meant to be. Sometimes walking away isn't an act of cowardice, but the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes returning, on your own terms, is even braver. James and I welcomed our daughter last spring. We named her Margaret Thomas Wilson, reclaiming both sides of my complicated heritage. When she's old enough, I'll tell her the whole story, not to burden her, but to show her that even broken family trees can grow new branches. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, know that you're not alone. Your story matters. Sometimes, the most profound self-discovery happens when we're forced to rebuild from ruins. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories of family secrets, personal redemption, and finding strength in unexpected places.